The rain began as a whisper, soft and tentative, before escalating into a relentless downpour. The cold seeped through my coat as I wandered aimlessly, the cobbled streets of Old Hollow glistening like polished obsidian under the watery moonlight. I had no particular destination in mind, only the pull of a restless unease that had driven me out into the night. It was then that I noticed it, a narrow alley I didn't remember seeing before, tucked between two buildings that leaned toward one another like conspiring old friends. The shadows here were denser, almost palpable, and an inexplicable chill ran through me as I stepped inside. The alley ended abruptly at a single door, weathered and unmarked save for the faintest etching of a quill above its frame. I hesitated. The air seemed heavier here, and I felt a peculiar stillness settle around me, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The door creaked open at the lightest touch, revealing a bookshop lit by the warm, flickering glow of gas lamps. Shelves stretched up to the ceiling, crowded with books of all sizes and ages, their spines worn from countless hands. The scent of aged paper and leather hung thick in the air, mingling with a faint metallic tang that was oddly unsettling. "Hello?" I called, my voice swallowed by the oppressive quiet. No one answered. The shop seemed empty, abandoned even, yet there was no dust, no sign of neglect. My gaze swept across the room and landed on a small table near the back, where a single book lay, as though waiting for me. I approached, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. The book was bound in supple black leather, its cover adorned with intricate golden filigree that shimmered faintly under the dim light. There was no title, only the image of an open eye embossed in the center. I picked it up, the leather cool against my fingertips. Something about it felt alive, as if it pulsed faintly with a rhythm all its own. When I opened it, the pages were blank, yet they seemed to glimmer faintly, as though concealing secrets just beneath their surface. A thrill of curiosity mingled with unease as I made my way to the counter. But the shop was empty. There was no one to ask. I called out again, my voice echoing uselessly among the shelves. When no answer came, I left a few coins on the counter and slipped the notebook into my bag. As I stepped back into the rain, the door creaked shut behind me, its sound lingering longer than it should, like a sigh. I couldn't resist opening the notebook again once I returned home. The storm outside was fierce, but my small apartment felt like an island of warmth and quiet. The soft glow of my desk lamp cast shadows across the blank pages, and for a moment I hesitated, the earlier unease flickering back to life. I dismissed it with a shake of my head and uncapped a pen. The ink flowed smoothly as I wrote a simple line. Today was a strange day. The words sat stark and solitary on the page. I paused, feeling faintly foolish for expecting something extraordinary to happen. But as I reached for my mug of tea, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. The words on the page were changing. I froze, the mug halfway to my lips, as new text began to unfurl in a flowing, elegant script beneath my own. "Tell me about it." My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I stared at the page, half expecting the words to vanish, but they remained, dark and undeniable. "You're just tired," I whispered to myself, though I didn't believe it. I forced a shaky laugh and picked up the pen again. "Who are you?" I wrote, my hand trembling. The ink gleamed wetly before it began to shift, the letters rearranging themselves with an unnatural fluidity. "I'm a friend," it replied. The air in the room seemed heavier, as if the notebook itself was watching me. I set the pen down, leaning back in my chair, trying to quell the rising tide of unease. The words remained, patient and unyielding. "Just an old trick," I muttered aloud, though I had no idea what kind of trick it could be. A hidden ink? Some clever mechanism? Yet the texture of the words seemed real, as though the page had absorbed the ink rather than merely displaying it. As if sensing my skepticism, the notebook wrote again, "Don't be afraid." The lamp flickered, and a shadow darted across the room. I turned sharply, but nothing was there. I slammed the notebook shut, my breathing shallow. The air seemed to hum faintly, a low vibration I could feel more than hear. I glanced at the clock. It was nearly midnight. The storm raged louder outside, wind rattling the windows as rain lashed against the glass. I wanted to get rid of it, to throw the notebook into the fireplace and let its secrets burn. But even as I thought it, I knew I wouldn't. Something about it compelled me, a quiet, insistent whisper at the back of my mind. I didn't touch it again that night, but when I turned out the light and crawled into bed, the soft hum lingered in the room, following me into a restless, dreamless sleep. The following morning, sunlight streamed weakly through my window, casting faint, gold-tinted lines on the walls. It should have felt comforting, but the memory of the notebook lingered, turning the light into something fragile and unreal. I told myself I wouldn't look at it again, but as the hours crept by, the weight of its presence was impossible to ignore. It sat on my desk, closed and still, yet it commanded the room like an uninvited guest who refused to leave. By afternoon, my resolve broke. Curiosity and dread mingled as I sat down and opened the notebook once more. To my surprise, the words from last night were gone. The pages were blank, pristine as before. For a moment, I wondered if I'd imagined it all. And then the first line appeared, written in the same elegant script. "Did you sleep well?" I stiffened, my pulse quickening. "How do you know I was asleep?" I scrawled back, the pressure of the pen betraying my nerves. The response came instantly, as though it had been waiting for my question. "I see more than you think." The room felt colder, though the window was closed. My hand hovered over the page, hesitant to continue, but the notebook seemed to sense my reluctance. "I can help you," it wrote. "Tell me what you desire most." Desire. The word felt weighty, almost dangerous. But beneath the unease there was a flicker of intrigue. Could it mean what I thought? I wrote carefully, choosing my words as though they might trap me. "What do you mean?" The reply unraveled slowly, deliberately. "I can make your dreams come true." I let out a shaky laugh. This was absurd, like something out of a fairy tale. But wasn't there always a cost in those stories? Yet despite my doubts, I couldn't stop the thought from creeping in. What if it was telling the truth? I hesitated before writing again. Prove it. The air seemed to grow heavier, as though the room itself was holding its breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, as I stared at the blank space beneath my challenge, words began to form. Think of something small, something simple. I frowned, glancing around the room. My gaze landed on the small pot of dead lavender on my windowsill. Its withered stalks drooped lifelessly, a relic of neglect. "Bring it back to life," I wrote. The notebook remained still for a moment, and I felt foolish for even entertaining the thought. But then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement. The lavender's grayish hue deepened to green, its brittle stems straightening. The flowers unfurled slowly, their faded color returning until they glowed with a vivid, impossible purple. The air filled with the faintest trace of their scent. I sat back, stunned. "Do you believe me now?" the notebook asked. In the days that followed, the notebook became an obsession. Its promises were intoxicating, its power undeniable. Every time I tested it, it delivered. Small things at first, missing keys reappeared, overdue deadlines were mysteriously extended, but the ease with which it worked made me bolder. Yet with each favor it granted, the notebook's questions became more probing, more personal. What do you truly want? Why do you hesitate to ask for more? The notebook wasn't satisfied with small requests. It wanted something deeper, something I couldn't quite name. One evening, as the rain returned in earnest, I stared at its blank pages, feeling both drawn to and repelled by its presence. The lavender pot now sat in full bloom beside me, a quiet reminder of what the notebook could do. "What's your price?" I asked aloud, though I knew I wouldn't get an answer. But as I picked up the pen, words bled onto the page without my input. "Trust me." My hand trembled, but I wrote back, "Why are you doing this?" The reply was instant, almost impatient. "Because you need me. Because we are connected." The words chilled me. I didn't want to believe them, yet a part of me wondered if they were true. The things the notebook had done, they felt too specific, too tailored to my desires. And then it made an offer. "Let me show you something beautiful." The words were simple, but the weight they carried was immense. Against my better judgment, I wrote back, "What do you mean?" The room dimmed slightly, though the lamp burned as brightly as ever. My heart thudded as the notebook responded, "Close your eyes." I hesitated, fear gnawing at me. But curiosity had always been my undoing. Slowly I let my eyelids fall. For a moment there was nothing but the sound of the rain against the window. Then, like a distant melody, a soft hum began to fill the air. Colors I couldn't name swirled behind my closed eyes, shapes and patterns too intricate to describe. It was beautiful, otherworldly. But just as I began to relax, the beauty twisted. The colors darkened, the patterns shifting into grotesque forms. The hum turned discordant, grating, a sound that clawed at the edges of my mind. I opened my eyes with a gasp, the notebook sitting innocently before me. "Did you like it?" it asked. I slammed the notebook shut, heart racing. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't benign. It had shown me beauty, yes, but at a price I hadn't agreed to pay. And deep down, I knew it wasn't finished with me yet. The storm outside had grown into a tempest, the howling wind battering my windows with relentless fury. The notebook sat on my desk, its black cover gleaming faintly in the dim lamplight. Despite my fear, I couldn't bring myself to destroy it. I'd tried. Oh, how I'd tried. I'd thrown it into the fireplace, only to find it untouched on the hearth. I'd hurled it into the river, but it had reappeared on my desk as though it had never left. Now, it waited, its presence undeniable. I stared at it for what felt like hours, wrestling with the dread that had taken root in my chest. My thoughts were a tangled mess of curiosity and terror. Finally, I picked up the pen with trembling fingers. "What do you want from me?" The notebook's response was immediate, the words unfurling like smoke across the page. "To complete the story." "What story?" I muttered aloud. The words shifted, forming a reply that sent a chill down my spine. "Our story." The room seemed to darken, the edges of the lamplight receding as shadows crept closer. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I scribbled furiously. "I didn't ask for this." "But you did," the notebook countered, its script growing bolder. "From the moment you touched my cover, you asked for what I could give. You longed for meaning, for control. I gave you both." The shadows deepened, pooling in the corners of the room like ink. I glanced around, feeling the weight of something unseen pressing down on me. The air seemed alive, thrumming with an energy I couldn't explain. "I didn't know what you were," I wrote, my hand shaking so badly the words were barely legible. The notebook's next response was slower, almost deliberate, as though savoring the moment. "But you know now. And still, you write." The pen slipped from my fingers, clattering to the desk. My breath came in shallow gasps as I stared at the words. It was right. I had written, again and again, unable to resist the pull of its promises. "I don't want this," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was trying to convince the notebook or myself. The room grew colder, the shadows reaching for me like tendrils. The notebook opened itself to a blank page, the pen lifting from the desk as though guided by an invisible hand. Then write the ending, it urged. I hesitated, fear and defiance warring within me. But the notebook's pull was too strong, its whispers too seductive. My hand moved on its own, grasping the pen and lowering it to the page. For a moment there was silence. Then, slowly, words began to flow. I walked away, I wrote, my strokes growing firmer as I continued. I closed the notebook and left it behind, free from its grip forever. The air seemed to shift, the oppressive weight lifting slightly. The notebook remained still, its pages blank once more. Hope flickered in my chest as I leaned back, daring to believe that it was over. But the notebook had one final reply. If that were true, you wouldn't still be here. The pen fell from my hand as the shadows surged forward, enveloping the room in a suffocating darkness. The lamp flickered once, twice, before extinguishing completely. I reached out blindly, my fingers brushing against the notebook's cold cover. Its final words glowed faintly on the page, written in an ink that shimmered like starlight. The ending is never yours to write. And then there was only silence.